I hope everyone can see these slides. So disclaimer, I am not an expert on this subject, but with some limited experience, I think I could speak to a little bit about what's going on in this topic. I think that due to budget cuts or recent events such as the University of California's decision to cancel their contract with the publisher Elsevier, many librarians might find themselves having to quickly familiarize themselves with open access resources or alternatives to subscription databases in the future. And this is a very interesting and exciting topic in librarianship. So I'm glad you guys could make it. So let's begin. So what do I mean by a database or a library database? So there's no, I guess, clear one-size-fits-all definition of what is a library database. Databases in general can be defined as any collection of data or information that is especially organized for rapid search and retrieval by a computer. And that definition comes from the Encyclopedia Britannica. For libraries, this may mean a database is a repository for information users can access online or on-site at a library, giving them access to articles, books, images, or information about these objects. Library databases sometimes provide access to both a journal article and the data associated with that article. Sometimes databases only provide the underlying data, such as a database of census information. So note that there's a difference between, let's say, a paper on the infectiousness of COVID-19 and, let's say, the tabular sheets of data points tracking people with the disease that might have made part of that research for that paper. And these two objects, the research, the data, so on, they can both be thought of as information or data, but they do serve different purposes. So it's important not to get them mixed up. So what about an open access database? What's all that about? So the way I would put it is that an open access database is one that you can access for free. And that usually also goes with downloading or interacting with the content in that database. Some of these databases that you see in this slide contain resources or information on healthcare, art, business even. But the point is that they are all either free to use or partially so, or have easy access to them. So moving on. The term open access refers to the open access movement, which promotes reducing barriers of access to research online. Making research available to the public for free is one of the movement's main goals. Usually the term open access is invoked in the context of peer-reviewed research articles. Although in this case, we're also going to use it to refer to databases that simply provide a wide variety of information. It's worth noting these databases' contents are usually only free to the user. That doesn't mean that somebody along the line didn't have to invest a significant amount of resources to make that information available. One common feature of open access is when an author for an article has to pay a certain publisher for the publisher to make their article available online for free through an open access kind of initiative or feature. And this form of publishing or open access publishing stands in opposition to the usual, I guess, publishing sort of scheme, which involves a publisher taking profits off of the intellectual content that a author provided by charging subscription fees in order to access that content. So I hope I explained that relatively well. Anyways, I'll note also that something being open access or for free does not mean that it's accessible universally. Barriers preventing individuals from accessing resources such as disabilities And there are people out there with limited access to the internet. So those are other issues that the open access movement does not necessarily resolve or is capable of resolving. So I'm going to briefly talk about open access here at Simmons. These are two open access themed resources that you can find through Simmons University. The first I'm going to show you, and give me a second here, is called, yes, the Scholar at Simmons. I'm going to actually follow this link. Let's see how this goes. So in all likelihood, I might have to cease sharing my screen. So let me stop that at the moment. I'm going to share now my screen to show you what I'm talking about. If someone can tell me if they see the Scholar at Simmons website, that would be helpful. Okay, great. So this page showcases some of the scholarly output of Simmons University, and you can thank the Beatley Library and the University Archives for creating this resource. So let's see what we can find. I'm going to scroll down here to recently added. So we have here, this looks to be something in healthcare. Let me check what this is. I'm going to follow this link, and voila, it turns out that we have access here to a dissertation, it seems, I believe. Yep, a dissertation, and this is fully accessible online for free. And so because of this feature of Scholar at Simmons, making a lot of the research produced by Simmons employees or students available for free, I would consider this an open access resource or a service. So now let's head over to the open access directory. So I hope I don't make anyone dizzy, but I'm going to stop sharing my screen again. Now I am going to open another link. Give me a second here, and then let me share again, heading over to the open access directory. Okay, that should be good. So I'm assuming you guys can see this page. It looks like Wikipedia. So this is a page hosted by the School of Library and Information Science here at Simmons University, and it's supervised by an independent editorial board. So I'm not sure exactly who still maintains this page, but this is one of the better resources in open access that I think you can find out there. So, let's look at, for example, data repositories. This is something that, it's like a Wikipedia page. So let's see what they have here. So there's all kinds of, different resources and access to data that you can find through here. Let me check one. I think, let me see again. It was called a European something. That was interesting. Yeah, so right here, European Bioinformatics Institute. So this is just an example of an open access database. And I guess the point I'm trying to get to you is that there's a lot of helpful links here in this page, so that if you're ever interested in this topic, I would recommend heading over and seeing what's listed here. So I'm going to stop sharing my screen. I'm going to head over to my presentation again. So, okay, let's move on. So that was open access at Simmons. So now let's talk about, what we usually think about when we think of library databases, and that's the subscription ones. So I'm going to check chat real quick. Oh, thank you, Martin, for that. So now, most of the databases library patrons will have access to from a library have to be paid for by the libraries through subscription contracts. They are the places many people go to information libraries, whether they are students, academics, lawyers, or citizen activists. All kinds of libraries and civil institutions to provide resources and information have to pay for a database subscriptions. And this goes equally whether you're a librarian at a local public library, or if you're even, let's say, an information services manager at a global consulting firm like Bain and Company. So some of the issues librarians have to think about when making decisions about what databases to spend money on are let's say, the economies of scale. So, when the cost or advantage that an enterprise obtains due to the scale of their operation, meaning I guess the cost per unit, it can decrease when you increase the scale. So if I'm a librarian and I'm negotiating with a vendor, I have to think about how much money I want to spend and how many resources I want to put into a database and calculate that into the cost, and that will scale with how much I'm willing to put up. And there's other processes that librarians have to go through when thinking about the expenses on databases. There's also administrative churn, which is just a term to describe the costly and time-consuming process involved in testing, promoting, and activating database products. So I don't know if any of you have taken library databases, academic libraries here at Simmons University, but if you have, you probably know quite a lot about this. So there's also the work of analyzing the contents of a database, and all of these topics will help librarians sort of understand the unique value a certain database might provide to the library. And all of that has to go into the decision-making process. But the larger point is, this stuff isn't free. It's, you're gonna have to work to make it available. So how can librarians evaluate, the databases they subscribe to? Like, what can they do besides, trying it out themselves, or, just reading what their colleagues have to say about it? And, do open access databases play a role in this process? These are some of the questions that I want you to explore in today's workshop, and I hope we can find out about them together. So before we sort of get together in groups and have a little bit of fun looking through some databases, I just wanted to kind of show you guys an example of what happens when you try to compare a subscription and an open access resource. So I'm quickly just gonna go over this scenario. So let's say, let's say we're working at Simmons University, and we're at the library service desk, and a student approaches us with a question. Maybe they want to know what kind of resources can they access that might help them do one of the homework assignments. So here in the slide, I have described like a little scenario that involves, like a business student. And so if we wanted to help out the student, let's say the student had to produce a analysis report on a local business within a certain industry, or let's say the student needed to, figure out figure out where they could interview a local sort of business professional, and we might have to lead them to a database that will give them that information. So I'm going to head over to one of Simmons University's subscription databases. This is a fairly common business database. So excuse me again while I stop sharing and share my screen again. Give me a second. So I'm going to log in to my Simmons account. And here we have D&B Hoovers. So this is just this is just a database that provides information about companies and markets, such as revenue or news stories about the companies. So if we were going to help a student, we might say like, oh, let's figure this out. So I might go to search and build a list. So let's say the student needs to do the research on rubber manufacturing. So I would go through this whole kind of complex, expensive, richly detailed subscription database. I might say like, oh, here's an industry. Let me figure this out. So let's say the industry is rubber manufacturing. There's all kind of features I could use in this database. I could browse or search through industries, and oh, there you go, rubber. I can submit that. I can see like a preview of my results tally. So, 500,000 is too much. But, the student said, for example, oh, I want to do a research report on a local business, so I might limit my results by, let's say, postal or zip code. So, sorry. I believe that is the zip code for the Fenway area, and if it's not, pardon me. So let's add that, and oh look, 3 results. So maybe it's not. The point is, we would use we could use this database, and let's say we get some results. So on rubber and plastic manufacturing, we would say, okay, this works. This. Oh, here, let me do that again. I am going to edit my search criteria, and pardon me, and let's try that again. So here we have quite a list of companies, right? So let's say this is great, but we can't afford D&B Hoovers. So what else could we use? Perhaps we might try an open access resource. So I'm going to go to the quick directory here. Actually, give me a second. So I'm going to show you right now this interesting kind of website/database. This is just a directory filled with information about businesses, similar to the one I just showed you, only this one is for free. So, if we were gonna, let's say, limit our search results to Massachusetts, we could do that. We can even search by industry like we did earlier. So rubber, let's say rubber molding, you could search, and voila, we have another set of results, and this is completely for free. We don't have to subscribe to this website or anything like that, where we can see company profiles, we can see information about the companies, get a list of facts about them. And so you can kind of see how, if we were making decisions or if we were evaluating resources, we could try to maybe come out at evaluation for a subscription database based on what the alternative is if we don't want to spend money. So this is sort of the angle I'm taking here. So I think you guys know where this is headed next. I'm going to head back over to the presentation. Give me a second. So I'm going to assign all of you to one of 2 teams. There I will head over. So I'm going to actually break you out into rooms, and we will sort of evaluate and reflect on what this means, right? So let me go ahead and start that. So let's talk about this. So based on this brief experience, what do you think you've learned about open access databases? Do you think there are any advantages, disadvantages compared to subscription databases based on what you've found?
Well, I think whether the database is good or not, whether it's for pay or no pay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree. I think it was really like a database by database thing. Like we really didn't like CDC stacks for this question, but PubMed Central was really pretty great, and they're both open access.
Mm-hmm. Any other databases you guys found particularly helpful or difficult to use?
I think the AIDS info was good. I mean, it's one location with one topic, and then you can look up whatever you may want to.
I found the National Agriculture Library to be kind of difficult. Just to
that one, yeah, that one was open access, right?
Yes, that was open access.
Mm-hmm.
It's basically just a government database.
Yeah. So, yeah. Yeah. So you guys, I'm getting the sense the consensus is, it depends, right? Database specific can't really make sweeping judgments, it seems, is what I'm hearing.
I agree with that.
Yeah, interesting. Yeah, this isn't exactly a very, thorough examination of the issue, but I don't know. Did you guys feel like you learned anything today or through this exercise? I'm gonna briefly start sharing what you guys found. So I'm looking at team 1. So hold on. You know what? Let me share that screen. I'm gonna share team 1's results. Give me a second. So I'm looking at team 1 here. Let's go to, okay, so it looks like we found quite a few hits looking through this nursing database. I don't know, team 2, did you guys have a lot of success using your open access databases for question 1?
I think it depended on the database we used. Like I said, I think PubMed Central was really pretty great, and we had to work actually to narrow our terms quite a bit. But then, yeah, I think CDC Stacks was really hard to sort of figure out, how should I say, trying to figure out what terms we use and how to screen for it and narrow down what we actually wanted to get to. So yeah, it depended on what we were using.
Okay, yeah. I'm looking to see if there are any articles that you might have had in common. Yeah, so I don't know. Team 2, did you find? You said you had to narrow your search terms. So, can you give an example of some of the search terms you used?
Wait, sorry. I think I actually
Sorry.
don't know what team I'm on. Wait,
Yeah,
am I on
sorry.
team 2?
So I guess those
I'm
who were
so
using,
sorry. I think I responded to the other one. Just ignore
That's
me.
okay.
I'm
We're all a
so
team.
No,
sorry.
we're all together now. So,
Yeah.
so I guess those of you that used, let's say, CDC Stacks, do you remember? Oh, there you go. You used subject smoking and HIV.
Yeah.
How many results did you get? Do you remember?
We found that one harder than the other database. We found PubMed to seem easier to use and better results.
Mm-hmm.
And without looking for cessation in any of my terms, that came up all the time.
Interesting. Yeah. Okay, so question 2. Let's see. So I'm looking at the team 2 handout. You guys used environment complete, while team 1 looks like you accessed the National Agricultural Library and Green File. Did you guys get a look at this article, the Clean Water Rule Not Dead Yet? Team 2, do you remember what that was about?
Well, Lisa did a good job reading up on some of this, and we both found that one and thought that one looked good.
Mm-hmm.
And Mark, I think you agreed on that one.
Yeah, that was one of the main ones that popped up.
Yeah. Let's compare with what team 1 found. I'm just gonna follow this link.
Yeah, we found that one too.
Interesting. Okay, yeah.
But through Gale.
So it looks like yeah, some overlap, which is what you want to see. Obviously, the more access, the better. Interesting. Yeah. Also, team 2, you guys had ProQuest Science. I'm gonna look at what else team 1. What else did you guys find here? Is that the same article? Yep.
I think it was a different one, or I thought it was. Yeah.
Interesting. Yeah. Georgetown Environmental Law Review. I don't know. Do you team two? Did you find an article like this at all with this title? You remember?
I personally did not see that one.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't think I saw it either.
Yeah.
Me neither.
Interesting. It's I wonder if that this journal, the Georgetown Environmental Law, if they have whether access policies are. Okay. So,
Yeah, Essex is one of the ones we were talking about because in the Gale suite, it's hard to distinguish where you are among their content.
Yeah. Yeah, there you go. It could be the case that the open access database gave you the link to the articles page, and then because of your Simmons
right
account, yeah. So that's it's hard to avoid that, I guess. So okay, let's move on to question 3. So looks like team 2, you guys use Dryad, which is excellent database. It's open access too. You found a unified set of conserved loci for the phylogenomics and population genetics of some reptiles. Interesting. Also birds, turtles. Did you guys? I guess it's probably not true. The data you didn't actually. Did you download it actually? Yeah. Tell me about that.
I can't even pronounce half the things that I found, so I don't know what to tell you about it.
Yeah. But some good leads there. Okay, Lee. Thanks for coming by. So I know we're getting past 12. If you guys are going to leave, go ahead. Obviously, let me check what. I'm going to head over to the second team 2. I mean team 1. So I believe you guys used what's it, academic one file, and you found this article. Let me go there. A cluster flock and an algorithm for isolated congruent phylogenomic data sets. So I didn't mention this earlier, but the open access databases that I made available for the third question, those were mostly databases with data, so not the actual article text, while the team that had access to the subscription databases used more kind of traditional academic and research sort of resources and databases. And so that's interesting one where, one team found an article that clearly is referring to like the process of modeling data, while the other team found, like some of the underlying data. And, it's always there's a lot of like tricky policies around, do you charge people for the article but not the data? If I publish an article, do I want to make my data available? And so there's like two parallel sort of sets of databases for finding, like both, the data and the information, like they're not usually in the same place. So that's always an interesting thing about the world of databases. So I'm going to stop sharing my screen.
Sorry, I have a question about that then.
Yeah.
So if an author publishes a paper, can the publisher sort of stop them from sharing their paper entirely, but they could allow them to share that data in a public way, and that's why there's so many open access data
Yeah,
sets?
absolutely. Publishers are far more flexible with publishing the underlying data. It's very common to see people deposit their data in a repository that anyone can access, and the article is, behind a paywall. Let's say the article is published in Nature. You can certainly, you can depending on, I guess, the author, if their data is very well organized, you can actually get a lot of the information you would from the article by just getting the data. But people want to pay for the actual article. But yeah, that's it's common for the data to be freely accessible, but the article to be behind a paywall.
Okay, that's super interesting. Thank you.
Yeah, and so I guess I kind of set up our our little exercise that way, because that's the truth. We have this kind of interesting set of open access policies that result in different levels of access for information that is technically speaking the same in some way. So that's always interesting. I don't know, any other reflections? I hate to speak so much.
Well, I'm just so impressed with just all the data that's out there, and really just I struggle with knowing where to go. I wouldn't have known any of the sites in number 3. I think it was, I just would never know. So like the data's out there, but just where to go. It's like.
Yeah. It's the open access directory at Simmons, which I briefly showed you guys. It's just a website. There's a lot of helpful links to all these databases, and they're like nicely kind of listed in the wiki page there. So that's good. That's a good place if you're ever like in a pinch and need a database. But yeah, it's one of the reasons librarians, I guess, have jobs, because they have to know about this whole world of databases and be able to, I don't.
Yeah, it was awesome to sort of hear about these different open access ones, because I'm really not familiar with them at all right now. So yeah, it was fun.
Yeah, and you can spin them in many ways. It's not just like fancy research that these databases serve. Anyone who's like concerned, let's say, about their health can use a open access database to find information about, let's say, pollution or so on. It's definitely a resource that I think can affect all levels of society. And all right, so I think I'm just gonna wrap it up soon. I'm glad you guys made it to this workshop. I hope you clearly you've learned something, and I hope this excites you and leads to further discoveries in the future. Have any comments you want to make about this workshop? I'd actually appreciate it if you could email me. So my email address is alejandro.paz@simmons.edu. And yeah, so I'm gonna wrap it up, and thank you guys again for showing up. Does anyone else have something else to say? Okay, so cool. So bye everyone.